So what an absolutely wild week in tech this was, with Jony Ive's company getting bought out for billions of dollars by OpenAI. Then you have Fortnite back into the App Store for the first time in years. And we're going to talk about what this means for Apple in the grand scheme of things, because although they didn't do anything specific themselves, all this stuff has a much bigger picture outlook for them moving forward. So let's talk about it in this week's episode of Friday 5. Let's get into it. So let's start off with Epic Games versus Apple and Fortnite back in the App Store, because as of May 20th of 2025, Fortnite is officially back in the Apple App Store as a free download for anybody with an iOS or iPadOS device. So to quickly recap what this all means, back in August of 2020, Fortnite was banned from the App Store for violating App Store guidelines by making people leave the App Store application and going to Epic's website or Fortnite's website to purchase in-app purchases or game purchases to bypass that 30% Apple tax that they put on all in-app purchases. And because this was part of the policies of the App Store, Apple was able to remove Fortnite completely from the App Store because Fortnite and Epic Games did not want to kind of coincide with all those guidelines and rules, so it's been away from the App Store for almost 5 years. Now, I personally was not a Fortnite player. I mean, I dabbled in it a little bit here and there, but I never got nearly as into it as a lot of other people did. So for a lot of iOS mobile gamers, this was a big impact on them because overnight they lost millions of users and millions of capable hardware that used to use Fortnite the application. But now the way that they were brought back into the App Store wasn't because Fortnite decided to say, okay, I'm going to pay the 30% tax. It's because the court ruled that Apple can no longer force applications to use the in-app purchase kind of situation. So what this means is that, well, yes, if you do want to do an in-app purchase, you still can, but Fortnite and any other application can put a button to make people go to their direct first-party website, download whatever they need to download, and then come back into the game, which again bypasses that 30% tax, brings all the revenue over to Epic Games and none to Apple, and keeps the app in the App Store. So again, leave a comment down below if you think this is justified. Where do you stand on this whole situation? Do you think that Apple is monopolizing the App Store because it's something that everybody needs, or do you think it's just capitalism and Apple created a product that people really enjoy and really need, and they're capitalizing on that, so if you want to play, you do have to go through Apple's guidelines? You know, I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are. But it's not completely over yet because Apple continues to appeal this in the courts because they think it's not fair. They're obviously going on the capitalism side of saying, hey, we created the App Store, it's something that we wanted, something that everybody uses, and we created it, and without us, there wouldn't even be this ecosystem of money-making opportunity for these app developers. And while there is an argument to that, the courts are saying that this is a monopoly, and this is unfair practice, and all this other things in the third. So Apple will continue to appeal this, and we'll see exactly what happens, so definitely follow along. But as of recording this video on May 21st, Fortnite is downloadable again on the App Store. And now onto the next big story of the week, which is that OpenAI purchased Jony Ive's company, I.O., and all the other auxiliary companies he was working on for $6.5 billion. And if you guys are in the tech world, and you probably are because you're watching this, your Twitter feed was probably full of threads of everybody going crazy about what this means for the future of artificial intelligence, what this means for OpenAI, what it means for Jony Ive, and they were comparing this relationship between Jony Ive and Sam Altman as what it was between Jony Ive and Steve Jobs back in the day. So I'm very curious as to how this is going to unfold. I, for one, am a little bit pessimistic in terms of what they're going to be able to do because Jony Ive was known for making beautiful hardware, right? Phone. He had his fingers in a lot of the mainstays that we still have today in the Apple ecosystem, but then OpenAI is a software company, so, and at the end of the day, we've already seen a try at an ultra premium AI product, which was the Humane Pin, and that quickly crashed and burned. And it's giving me that type of feeling where this might be just an overpriced paperweight that just has OpenAI built into it, when you already have other companies like, for instance, BAI, who has a $50 piece of hardware, which is just a carrier of the software, and then everything is done on device on the actual phone itself that it's connected to. So I don't really think there's a big market for getting this ultra premium AI only device. We're already hearing words of, hey, this is not going to be a pair of glasses, this is not going to be a phone, this is going to be a dedicated AI piece of hardware. So leave a comment down below what you think. If anybody can do it, I guess it is Jony Ive because of his past and his experience and his beautiful kind of hardware that he's produced over the years. But again, at the end of the day, things like ChatGPT are just going to fit into whatever piece of hardware already exists because it is a piece of software and not a piece of hardware that's needed in order to run this stuff, especially when you're already running everything through cloud servers and things of that nature. So let me know what you guys think is going to happen with this Jony Ive OpenAI situation. And 6.5 billion, literally for what? Like, what has Jony Ive created for $6.5 billion? And then the final thing that I do want to talk about, which is highlighted not only by this Fortnite situation, but from other companies like Spotify, is that this does open the door for a lot more revenue for app developers to be making money on the App Store when it comes to bypassing Apple's tax when it comes to the in-app purchases. For instance, Spotify CEO says that premium subscriptions have already spiked thanks to the App Store changes because they no longer have to pass that tax onto the consumer. Some companies were doing one of two things. They were saying, hey, you can sign up through the App Store or through the application, pay $15 a month for X streaming service, but then if you go directly to our website, you can pay only $10 a month for that streaming service. And a lot of companies were doing this to deter people from doing the in-app purchases, and now it's all being done through the application, which is a lot less friction for the end user, which means a lot more developers are going to be incentivized to make 30% more on their money when it comes to building whatever they want to build. And I do think this is a net positive for developers and for the end consumer because it brings more competition, it brings more incentive to the App Store, it makes people want to really create better apps because they're going to be earning 30% more on anything that they do inside of the application. And while albeit Apple will be a little bit upset because they're losing 30% of their revenue on all these in-app purchases, they'll be able to make it up some other way, and I'm sure at the end of the day, the consumer is going to pay for it by either paying more for their services or paying more for the services of the app developer. So at the end of the day, I don't think anything's going to get really cheaper, but I do think competition will increase and better applications will be the net positive outcome. But again, let me know what you think about this whole situation when it comes to app developers, in-app purchases. And then lastly, when it comes to this AI, OpenAI, and also Jony Ive collaboration, I do think this is good also for competition because even though I don't think anything will come from it from a piece of hardware situation, and maybe they will build something that will have OpenAI and ChatGPT built into it, kind of like the little R2 rabbit thing that came out or the R1 rabbit, I think this is going to raise some flags internally for Apple because now they really have to step it up with WWDC and make sure that their Apple intelligence is going to be on par or surpasses something like ChatGPT. And that's what we want. I use ChatGPT on a daily basis for a lot of different things. And if Apple intelligence in Siri is able to replicate that on device and then be able to take certain actions for me inside of my phone with certain applications, like if I just say, hey blank, order me an Uber and take me to this place, and then it just be able to do that completely with just one final check for me to press yes, I think that's going to be a huge development when it comes to Siri, artificial intelligence, and more importantly, Apple intelligence. So let's see exactly what Apple does with WWDC moving forward and what you guys would want out of Apple intelligence at the end of the day. But that was just about do for this episode of Friday 5. Let me know in the comment down below what you guys think of everything. Is this Jony Ive collaboration and Buyout something that's going to be good for the end consumer? Do you think it's going to flop at the end of the day and then they'll just be bought by somebody else for pennies on the dollar, very similar to Humane? And what do you think about the monopolization of the App Store and making it just a little bit easier for everybody to get in and not have to pay these prices? Is that good? Is that bad? Is it fair? You know, always curious to have that conversation down below because I know that there's a lot of opinions about that. But that'll do it for this video, everybody. If you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin. And if you guys want to watch more videos like this one, check out our last episode. We're now 20 episodes in to Friday 5. Peace, everybody.